Alright guys, I'm going to give you the 101 on bracket racing, showing you what all these numbers mean and how to turn on win lights, hopefully. So, my car, the number is 524F, and it's a foot brake car through the NHRA, so my car does not have any electronics. I do everything with my 2 feet, and that's why I think that bracket racing is the easiest thing to get into and the cheapest, because you can race anything that you want. So you got your 2 time runs, and then they go into eliminations. All the time runs are for is to work on your reaction time and to see what your car is going to run for the day. So you got your reaction times up here. That's the first number. My competitor was 020, I was 008. So if your track does this, they'll take the best reaction time out of everybody in your class, and the person with the best reaction time will get the bye in the first round. And so say that 008 is the best one of the qualifying times, you'd get the bye for the first round. So I ran a 1364, he ran an 1167, but it doesn't matter that he got there first because it's only your time runs. So then you go and you look at your second pass. I was 035 for my reaction time, and I ran a 1360, and the first one was a 1364. Now, everybody does this differently, but the way I do it is I'll take my 2 times, I'll take my worst time and add 2, unless the weather shifts. Then I'll either add more or I'll leave it at my slowest pass. Same thing with Sunday's passes. I ran a 1355 and then a 1360. But then you go into your eliminations, and your competitor will enter their time, you'll enter yours, and the computer will have it all figured up to where you should be side by side at the finish line. So you take my 1364 and it's 1203, so there's about a 1.5 seconds difference there. So what'll happen is I'll leave first for a 1.5 seconds, and then he'll give chase, and we should be right here at the finish line. We should be side by side. And as you can see, the difference was 0.04 of a second. This is where your reaction time comes into play, because our reaction times are pretty much the same, but as you can see, he ran closer to his dial-in than I did. But if I would have had a better reaction time, say I had an 020 to his 040, I would have 200ths that I could play with at the finish line. So that's where your reaction time comes into play. If you have a better reaction time, you'll be able to play with more at the finish line, and vice versa. If you have a worse reaction time, then you'll have to make up for your reaction time at the finish line. So that one, he just had a better pass. I spun going into second gear, so I lost a little bit of time with that. And then if you look at the next one, I had a worse reaction time, and we both slowed down, but he slowed down a little bit more, so that made up for the difference in reaction time just that little bit. But he still beat me to the finish line by 0.05 of a second, which is about the difference at the starting line. The difference at the starting line is usually the difference at the finish line. That's why you want to have a better reaction time. So then if you look at some of the other slips, this is going to go into a different sort of category, and that's called a breakout. Now, with your dial in, you cannot run faster than your predicted time. If you do that, you're automatically disqualified unless your competitor breaks out also. Then it goes into whoever has the worst breakout. So as you can see, we both had lousy reaction times, but we were close. I ran a 1373 on a 77 dial, so I broke out by 0.04 of a second. And he ran a 1395 on a 1397 dial, so he broke out by 0.02 of a second. And as you can see, I beat him to the finish line by 0.02 of a second, which when you're going 100 miles an hour, it's not that much. But he won the race by 17 thousandths of a second, which is the difference in breakouts. That's how much closer he was to his dial than I was. And the same goes with this one. I had a better reaction time than they did, but I ran a 63 on a 74 dial, so I broke out by over a tenth, which is really bad. And she ran a 31 on a 41 dial, which isn't as bad. It's not good, but it's not that bad. And as you can see, I beat her to the finish line by 0.05 of a second, but the difference in the breakout was 12 thousandths of a second. So it gets down really close. Now going to when you do everything right. This was from last year. My dial-in was a 1436. I ran a 1437 with a 5. I had a 002 reaction time. So I gave him a 17 thous pack, because when you add up your reaction time and your time at the finish compared to your dial-in, so I was if my pen works. I was 0.015 off my dial-in. I had a 0.002 reaction time. So I had a total package of 17 thousandths of a second. And the closer that you can get to 000, the better. That's a perfect package. You will never lose a race if you have a perfect package. But when you look at his reaction time, I had 44 thousandths of a second of an advantage at the finish line. And as you can see, he broke out because I had that advantage on the starting line. I was already passing him, so he couldn't let out of the gas to try to make up for the disadvantage, and he ended up running too fast. But I still beat him to the finish line by 5 thousandths of a second because I was that close to my dial-in and I had that advantage on the starting line. So he broke out, automatically disqualified. I ran pretty much right on my number for the win. Here's another one to where neither of us broke out. I had the advantage on the starting line. I was off of my number, but compared to my other passes to where I'm doing 101, 102 mile an hour, I was able to let off, kill 10 mile an hour, and I beat him to the finish line by nearly a tenth of a second because I was that little bit closer to my dial-in and that advantage on the starting line carried to the finish. And I was able to let off the gas, tap the brakes, because you want to make this number as close as possible without letting them pass you. If they pass you, you gave away the race, unless they break out. And that's how bracket racing works. And then the last factor of this is pesky red lights. I'll highlight that. So, red lighting is when you leave too early and you're automatically disqualified. So, she was dialed a 17:37. It's my 14:54. I had a bad light, but she turned on the red light, so the win automatically goes over to me. You want to get this number to as close to triple zeros as possible without turning on the red light. And that's how all that works. It's very, very nitpicky, but when you can get it done right, you're going to win a lot of races. So I hope that helps explain everything. You have to be as close to triple zero as you can. Can't go red, automatically disqualified. Can't run faster than your time, otherwise you're automatically disqualified. Or here, I ran faster in my time, but because she red lit, she was disqualified first. I get a free pass. And then with red lights too, some tracks have it to where whoever goes red light worse loses the race. Some tracks, if I went red, I would still win the race because she went red first. But other tracks, it's whoever goes red worse loses. So say this one, say we both went red, but he went red by that much. So he went red by 167. I went red by 084. I would still win the race because my red light was closer to being green than his. So that's the ins and outs of bracket racing. I hope you give it a try, and you'll get the hang of it. Just take your street car out there. They're super consistent, and just have some fun. Thanks for watching. Bye.